Okay, so the first thing that I have to do is create a style sheet. I'd like to note that there's several ways to use CSS. You can use inline styles, which is more or less frowned upon. We're not going to get into that. Please look it up if you're interested. That's just a way to actually write CSS within your elements everywhere. You can also use the style tag, where you actually just throw in a style tag and then do all your styling inside of your HTML document. However, what we are going to do is we're going to create a separate style sheet so that we can link that to multiple documents. Okay? So how we do that is we go up to File, New File, and it made us a text file by default. If you just go to Save As, you can change that extension yourself to .css. Okay, I'm going to actually change the name of mine to Styles. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. Just make sure it ends in that extension, and make sure that your style sheet is saved in the same folder as your HTML documents that you are going to link to. That's the easiest way to link these two together. Okay. So there's my style sheet. Let's talk a little bit about what I'm going to be writing now. In our assignment here, I've got examples of how everything works. I've got this picture from the W3 schools. Then I've got links right here to some references. Let's go ahead and go to the first one here. CSS Syntax. It's made up of selectors and declarations. The declarations are actually made up of properties and values. In this case, the selector is an H1, just like the H1, H2, H3 headings that we write in our HTML document. Remember, we wrapped our content in H1, H2s, or H3s. For example, all about trees, that's our heading 1. Okay, that's wrapped in an H1. So when we write CSS, by using the selector H1 and then applying properties and values to it, we are styling that H1, and that will be on every single page that there's an H1 that if as long as that CSS is linked to that HTML document. Okay? Now, the property color. Where am I getting all the different properties? How do I know all of these? You'll start to memorize quite a few of them as you work with this. However, there's a CSS reference, and the CSS reference will have all the different CSS properties on here. Okay, so you can get that again. You can get to that right here. So if you're like, if I'm writing, for example, I got them highlighted here, padding or margin or any of these, and you're not sure what they are, just come here and look them up, and there'll be examples, and you can read the definitions, no problem. So if it seems like I'm writing something and you're like, I don't know what that is, how does he know what that is? All you got to do is just look it up in this reference here. It's nice and easy. All right, and also color names. I'm going to be using a lot of different colors. I tend to write in the hex numbers, but you can also, and if you're not familiar with hex numbers, don't worry, we'll get into that in a few weeks. But if you use the color pickers at all in Photoshop or Colorzilla or anything like that, then you're already familiar with these. And it's just a way to index colors. Okay, or you can use keywords here, and we got black, blue, brown, and then also maybe some that aren't quite as intuitive, like, I don't know, floral white, goldenrod, dark slate gray, but you can actually use these keywords instead too. So if you see me use hex numbers, that's what I'm doing, and you can just come here, the link's right there, and you can use any of these colors that you wish. Okay, let's go ahead and write some CSS now. Now the first thing that I want to do is, well, actually I want to increase the font size. Increase font size. And we're going to do that a few times here. Increase font size, increase font size. Hopefully that's a little easier on your eyes. Maybe we'll do a couple more. Nice and large. Okay. Now, the first thing that I want to do is create an HTML selector, open and close curly braces. This is how we write our selectors, okay? So we write the selector, and then we open and close curly braces is where we put the properties and values. Again, here is the HTML document, the trees one that I made. And remember that I wrapped all the content in this HTML tag. So that's what we're selecting in our selector, is that HTML element. And so anything that we put in here is going to affect the entire document. So let's go ahead and change the background. So background, colon, that's our property, and then the value, I'm going to make that gray, and then semicolon. That's all we have to do right there, and I'm going to save that. Now if I go over to the trees document and I preview that in Firefox, it's going to do absolutely nothing because I haven't actually linked them. Okay, so let's go ahead and link them now. How we link them is we use the link tag. And where does the link tag go? It goes in the head of the document. Remember, the head is where all the information goes about the document, okay? Not stuff that you're going to be reading. Of course, the title you can read up in the tab, but essentially inside the head is where information goes about the document, not the visible content itself. So we use the link tag. And so type in link, left angle bracket, link, space, href, you've seen these before, right? And when we're referencing image locations, quotation marks, just as before, styles.css. Now, I get to have a nice short address here because I saved my CSS sheet inside of the same folder as my documents, my HTML documents. Okay, so we've said, reference that style sheet, but we haven't told the browser why. Like, the browser is it's gonna not know what to do with it. So we have to declare what the relationship is. So we do that by writing rel equals. The relationship is, in quotation marks, it's a style sheet. Okay, and that's just a keyword that the browser will recognize. Oh, okay, I'm supposed to read this style sheet and use it to style everything. Okay, and I'm going to save that. Now, if I preview this in Firefox, there we go. My background of my entire HTML document is gray. Okay, now if I go over to my second document here, trees2.html, it's really not the best name for that, is it? Okay, anyway, whatever. And preview it, nothing happens. Why? Because we have only linked on the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut and paste, or copy and paste, not cut and paste, that link, and I'm going to put it into the head of my second HTML document, like so. Save that. Okay, now if I preview this one in Firefox, you can see that my page with the willow is also has a gray background now. So that right there is CSS in a nutshell. A property which is targeting something on this page, in this case the entire HTML document, a selector, and then a property, in this case the property is background, and then a value of that property, in this case that property is gray. Okay, now notice I said you could also use hexadecimal numbers, so you have to have the pound sign there, 777, 777, that will give us a dark gray. Okay, I'm going to save that, come over here, and preview that in a browser. And there's our dark gray. Okay, so whatever you feel comfortable using for now, that's fine. Without a doubt, at first, these are the easiest ones here, just basic keyword colors. Okay, so that's actually CSS syntax right there. And the things to remember are, well, you have a selector, a property, and a value. After a property, you have a colon. After a value, you close everything with a semicolon. You want to link to the sheet by having left angle bracket, link, space, href equals, and then styles.css in quotation marks, space, rel equals, in quotation marks, style sheet, and then close that with a right angle bracket. Okay, so that's all you need to do. And so all we're going to do in the next video is we're going to just keep adding more and more selectors and styling them.